Hi, it's Dr. Greg Emerson. I am fortunate to be here in Byron Bay with Tonia from Alaska and Ubud Bali, yoga instructor extraordinaire. And today I'm going to talk about polycystic ovary syndrome and the new research on use of berberine in polycystic ovary. And we're going to talk to Tonia about what a glimmer is and what contentment threshold means. So if you're interested, let's get started. Hi, I'm Dr. Greg Emerson from Treat the Cause podcast and this YouTube channel. We're talking a lot about yoga, meditation and pranayama, and we're talking about how modern science is validating some traditional health practices. That's the theme of this YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about polycystic ovary syndrome, and polycystic ovary syndrome is a huge problem for a lot of women, which is where it's more a biochemical disease than anatomical disease. You don't necessarily have to have cysts on your ovaries, and the general consensus is that the cause of polycystic ovaries is damage to the ovarian wall by elevated levels of insulin, which means that when the eggs come to the wall of the ovary to be ovulated into the fallopian tubes, they can't escape. They come up against this thickened wall of the ovary. The egg tries to be released. It can't be released. Brain goes, why are you not releasing an ovary? So your brain starts shouting at your ovaries, and therefore the ovaries start producing more eggs. But as they produce more eggs, the same process happens, that these eggs come to the surface of the ovary ready to be ovulated, but they can't escape. So you get the build-up of cysts in the ovary, and you also get release of testosterone from the ovaries as the ovaries get instructed or stimulated to produce more testosterone. So women often have very irregular periods, bad PMT or PMS, and they get androgenic effects from the high levels of testosterone. Now, one of the ways to look at improving polycystic ovaries is to reduce the insulin levels, which is the thing which is damaging the wall of the ovary. If you keep falling on your shins and getting a scab on your knee, the first thing you have to do is stop falling, so you give a chance for the scab to heal. So improving your nutritional program to make sure you get less insulin in the body, and that's having less high glycemic foods is the priority there, is very important. But also the other big one, we know that berberine, which in the past has been shown to be a very effective hypoglycemic agent, something which reduces your blood sugar, has been shown to be as effective in many studies as the drug metformin in reducing blood sugar levels. New research out this week shows that it dramatically improves polycystic ovary syndrome, and it does that by reducing insulin levels and therefore preventing the damage to the ovarian wall. And berberine is an amazing natural substance which comes from the roots of many traditional foods, and as well as having profound blood sugar lowering benefits, it's also been shown to be antiparasitic. It's been shown to be anti-cancer, like many of the flavonoids, and it's very, very also antifungal and has some antibiotic properties as well. And the research is there, and the link to the study on berberine and polycystic ovaries is in the show notes below. But I think changing your diet and berberine are two real fantastic advances in the prevention of polycystic ovaries, as well as the other things that you and I've discussed about sleep and exercise as well is very important. So remember the link to that study is in the notes below. And flowing on from that, I want to talk to you a little bit about when you were on the teaching course, you talked about the difference between a glimmer and a trigger. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about what a glimmer is. And we also talked about how a woman from Alaska ends up being in Bali, embracing a more minimalist lifestyle, and what you mean by the contentment threshold. So can you run us through what a glimmer is, how it differs from a trigger, and what the contentment threshold is?
Okay, so these are subjects that have come from conversations that we've had in the training that we just completed in January. So I teach yoga, I teach anatomy, and I teach posture lab, so asana postures. For me, I came to Bali because of what I call the contentment threshold. I read that phrase somewhere. There have been studies that have been done that talk about how much money you need, what you actually need for contentment. And I think that we can all agree that money doesn't buy happiness. So at a certain point, you have enough. You have a shelter, you have enough wages, you have whatever you need to reach contentment. And anything above and beyond that is excessive, it's superfluous. You don't need it for contentment. And that's why people oftentimes who have a lot of money are just as happy or as unhappy as someone who has very little money. So when I think about contentment, what do I personally need to be content? It's actually not that much. My life is very abundant. I had a great life in Alaska. Moving to Bali has been just actually an improvement for me. It's a much more simple lifestyle for me than what I left. But the better sleep, the less stress, and also doing what I love, which is teaching yoga, has been just a huge benefit for my life and my lifestyle. My contentment threshold has been reached, and anything above and beyond I am just so incredibly grateful for. And I champion ease and grace in the parasympathetic nervous system. And what a glimmer is essentially the opposite of a trigger. So perhaps you've heard of a trigger. You've been triggered by something and it causes this angsty reaction in the body. Maybe your palms sweat, your heart races, you begin to sweat, and you begin to have this stress, and you begin to tell yourself stressful stories, true or untrue. And that oftentimes is what we need to take that space between the stimulus and the response to decide, are these stories true? What is the threat? Now, a glimmer is the exact opposite of that. It is that moment, it is that reaction that makes you feel safe, makes you feel connected, and makes you feel a sense of relaxation. So what I like to do is create glimmers, and I champion glimmers. So a glimmering moment is touching someone on the shoulder and communicating to them that you understand them, that you see them, that you appreciate them in some way. Even if you're not agreeing per se, or you're having challenging, you can still have moments of glimmer that say, hey, I'm here and we're gonna work through this together. And it creates a foundation of trust between human beings. And for yoga, in my work, in my profession, and in my personal life, I find that the more I can communicate a glimmer, the more other people around me feel safer, therefore more connected, and then we are creating a foundation of trust between us. When you, and take note in your own life, who around you makes you feel safe, and who, when you're around them, makes you feel contracted or scared or in some way threatened. Just take a mental note. This isn't to say anything to that person, but to directly curate your own life. Surround yourself with the glimmers. Avoid as much as possible triggering environments and people, just for your own mental well-being. And of course, practice a lot of yoga and a lot of breath. And might I suggest meditation and a good night's sleep and low glycemic food.
There we go. What a great summary. Low glycemic food, berberine, embrace the glimmers,
Yes.
minimize the triggers, embrace a more minimalist lifestyle to lower your contentment threshold, and concentrate. No, that's probably enough. All right, I'll edit that out. Thanks very much. That's the beauty about it. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and the bell button. Come and join me on Patreon. We've got the podcast going now as well. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you next time.